Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking with Elliot and Dom Chapman. Fellas, looking forward to talking with the two of you. I did business with my brother in my early 20s, and so I love talking to entrepreneurs. I love talking to entrepreneurs who are brothers and building businesses. I want to give a quick bio on you guys. You've taken you're doing a ton of business together. You operate under Chapman Capital. You guys got business-to-business growth agency. It's worked with some of the world's largest tech brands, a podcast booking agency, which you guys put a lot of guests on my show, which I'm really grateful for. You've booked guests in over 2,200 podcasts, and you're just doing a ton of great stuff. And I want to dive into, what it's like to be brothers, be entrepreneurs, build businesses, and all that other great stuff. I'm a business coach. I work with solopreneurs to Fortune companies all over the country. And one of the things I do with them is they are stuck. I get them unstuck. So I want to kick off today talking about what's a recent stuck that you guys have had as business owners, and how did you get unstuck?
Oh, diving straight in with the hard-hitting questions. John, thanks for having us on. So I think a recent scenario, a recent example is one of the challenges that Dom and I have is where we operate across a number of different businesses is choosing where we focus our time on a week-to-week basis. You can't plan those things out. A lot of the stuff that Dom and I do, particularly in the businesses, are fairly reactive because when you operate across that many businesses, you have to come in and put fires out, sort out staff solutions or staff problems, and just be there to really create or have impactful decisions.
Yeah.
So one of the situations that we had in one of the businesses was around staff, and staff probably because we weren't putting as much focus on that particular business. And I won't name the business because I don't want to highlight it, but
right.
We had an issue with staff and around performance, and Dom and I had to really dive back in and just strip away what was the issue. So get to the bottom of, right, what is the actual issue here? Is it a people issue? Is it a cultural issue? Is it a delivery issue? So it meant myself and Dom getting our hands dirty in that business for sort of 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
Once we'd got our findings, then it was right. Now we need to make those decisions. Those decisions were difficult, and it meant people leaving the business. And essentially starting a little rebuild project.
Yeah.
So that was probably the most recent. We were stuck. We were like, oh, hell, here we go.
Yeah.
We need to dive back in. We need to get our hands dirty and rebuild.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate that story. And I hear that a lot. And, one of the things I coach my clients to is the importance of routines and really specific and measurable detailed plans and small meetings to kind of stay ahead of real time on stuff like that. So thanks for kind of walking us through that, because I think it's a big issue, right? Is it a people issue? Is it a training issue? Is it a leadership issue? And when you can really zoom out and dive in, it makes a really big difference. I think community, one of the things I see a lot is that people don't actually take the, in this case, 7 to 10 days to kind of course correct what's happening. So make sure you're doing that. All right, fellas, let's talk about being entrepreneurs and being in business together as brothers. I started a company with my brother when I was 23, he was 25. I loved it. It was a blast. When did your entrepreneurial roots begin where you knew that you were going to start doing businesses together?
Oh, good question. I think so. We shared an office, I'm going to say about close to 8 years ago now, where I was in the family business. I was running a tech inside that, and we decided to share an office. And at that moment in time, we really started to support each other, from a business point of view, from a personal point of view. That's where we started to get close. So as brothers, you get through those teenage years, you stop fighting and you start being friends.
Just about,
yeah. And then we were both getting to a point where we wanted to leave the businesses. and we knew we got on. We knew we supported each other. And I think the key thing is we bring different skills to the table, so we're not doing the same thing. And we've seen it over and over with founders or co-founders where they both go in with the same skill set, and there's so much missed. So yeah, we started off well. We tried to start a few ventures, a couple of failed ventures, and then we landed on the first one, which was Social Chaps, and that grew quite nicely. And then from that, we've decided to expand out. But through that journey as well, there's been plenty of other failed ventures where we've tried things and turned them off after a couple of months because they're not quite working. We're very much try, sell. If it doesn't sell, turn it off.
Yeah. Well, I have a question on that. What did you guys learn from the failures?
But it's hard to freeze alcohol. So we try to create an alcoholic, like a sorbet or an ice lolly.
Yeah.
Which it can be done, but we wanted something that was genuinely alcoholic that you could sort of replace for a drink on a really real sunny day. Instead of having like a gin and tonic, you'd have like a nice lolly that gave you the same satisfaction.
Yeah.
Turns out it's really hard to do. Really hard to do.
I think the thing I learned is the difference between a physical product business versus a service business is you really need to do your research. Whereas with a service-based business, you can, we can just give someone a call, say, do you, this is what we're thinking to do. Would you buy it?
Right.
You only need 5-10 of them to turn into a small business. Whereas to create an alcohol brand or a rum brand or these types of businesses, you really need to do your market research and understand the economics of it more than anything.
Yeah. What'd you learn about? Because I think, business partners are one thing, brothers are another, right? And so I remember, just as a side thing, I'm thinking, I used to say I'm the younger brother. So I used to say to who's the younger brother?
That's an insult, John.
Yeah, Dom.
So yeah, I mean, you guys are 2 years apart. It's not, so, but I always used to say to my brother, not always, but I would say to my brother occasionally, like, don't talk to me like I'm your little brother at a board meeting, so, but what did you learn about each other, through the failures?
Yeah. So I think Dom's much more creative. And if that hasn't come across yet, it will do in the next 10 minutes. Dom is definitely much more creative. He's the one that comes up with, I guess, the spark. And what comes with a lot of creatives, not all, but a lot, is they want to just do their thing. They want to just create. They don't necessarily think about the ramifications of things. They don't think about the impact of things. They are just in their creative zone. So what I like to think I bring, I don't always do this, is I guess the rest of it. So is this viable? Is it genuinely something that potentially could sell? If it can sell, how do we do that? How do we take it to market? What do our customers look like? And by just balancing each other out, that's not all me. That's me sort of pointing the questions. And whilst we are different, there are a lot of similarities. And I think by being brothers, by being raised in the same household, under the same values, it makes business so much easier because you're aligned. And I think a lot of the challenges that co-founders or business partners have, they're not aligned because their values are different and what they want out of life is different.
Yeah.
Tom and I are working towards the same goal because it's what's been instilled in us. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to work towards the same thing. It makes things so much easier.
So let's talk about what's instilled. Your family has an IT business. Elliot, you ran that. It sounds like you grew up around entrepreneurial parents. And so, like, just rewind, what did they teach you about business?
So mum and dad are both quite different. Dad is very entrepreneurial. I think it was fair to say that growing up, he was out doing his own thing. I was about to say that he wasn't around much. That made it sound awful, but it was just accepted that he was out running his business and providing. And I think that set the tone in terms of what the expectation is if you're going to make something a success. There are a lot of hours and there are sacrifices that come with that. I think in this new world today that we live in, post-COVID, there is a misconception around what sacrifice looks like. There's a lot of people that we go to hire and they expect big salaries and they expect not to go anywhere. They expect not to travel. And that's just not how a big business is built. The landscape is changing, but that's my opinion. Mum gave us the grounding of the family values and what it was. She was the person who was always around. And they just balanced each other out completely. You had Dad who was out building, constantly trying to do new things, constantly innovating, constantly growing. If it's not one business, it's the next business. And then Mum was the complete balance, was not interested in the business in any way, shape or form, couldn't tell you what Dad did from day to day, and was purely focused around the family. So I feel like we had the perfect upbringing from two completely different perspectives.
Yeah.
I don't know what you thought, Dom.
I think the key thing that I think we take on from Dad really is the perception of risk with starting a business. We see it all the time where, someone wants to, stay in that job because, you've got that guaranteed salary, when in my opinion, it's never really guaranteed, because if you don't do your job properly anyway, you're going to lose it. So I think we have quite a different perception of sort of that risk factor with starting a business. And he's always been like that since we've been young.
Yeah. Let's talk about risk. I mean, you have your holding company, but you have, a handful of other companies, and I appreciate the vulnerability of talking about the failures. I've had failures too, and I kind of try to chalk them up as like expensive seminars, right? It's like, oh, that took me a lot of money to learn to say no, right? Or to ask myself this question next time I kind of start. I, like you, I'm open to the risk, right? I grew up, my dad was a dentist, but he had his own practice, and everyone in my family was kind of an entrepreneur. So talk about kind of the pragmatic piece of it and the intuitive piece of it, right? As far as how you kind of marry it when you decide to jump. Because I think a lot of people post-COVID, to your point, Tom, I appreciate it. I agree with you. Like, your job is safe until.
Yep.
And so a lot of people are thinking about, well, can I do X, or can I have a side hustle, or can I do this? But just kind of marry kind of like the definition of risk with intuitive and pragmatic thought.
Go on, Dom.
Yeah, so I think with the intuitive, me and Elle go a lot on sort of gut feel of things. And so when it comes to risk, we're potentially sometimes not the best people, because we literally just go on gut and how it feels between us.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'll take 24 hours, go sleep on it, and then come back to it. And if it still feels right, we'll go for it. And I think the thing is, when we go all in. And I think with certain things is, if you sort of don't go all in, you sort of end up in a worse position. I was going to use a football analogy or a soccer analogy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you into your football, but sometimes if you go into a tackle half-hearted, you end up worse than if you go in all in. So I guess that's from an intuitive point of view. And Al, I've given you plenty of time to think about the
play to win, don't play not to lose.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I will say this too, because I think when you're in alignment, I always found when I was with my brother, he knew how I thought. He knew, we intuitively knew each other. And so, and when you have a business partner within community, I think it's really important that you have that kind of sibling vibe, right? Whether they're your sibling or not. I just launched a new business. I'm a business coach, but I launched another business just for 18 to 26-year-olds. It's a coaching platform for 18 to 26-year-olds. I'll send you guys the link so you can check it out.
Nice.
But I have a business partner who we're very aligned, right? We bring different things to the table, but we're very aligned, so we can make decisions very fast.
Yep.
And so talk about how when you're in alignment, what that means, and how that means you can make a decision faster, and it's right more than it's wrong.
for me, it's not just alignment, it's trust, right? So
Yeah.
you need to have that trust and alignment so that you can bring your true, authentic self.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, you're going to be led down a real dangerous path. And both Dom and I have had business partners like that in the past, where you're scared to say something because maybe it's not, maybe you don't know how they're going to react.
Yeah.
And that is not a great place to be. It definitely helps that we're brothers because, again, it comes back to your core values. It comes back to your alignment. I know how Dom thinks. Dom knows how I think. And we've got this unwritten rule that we will never do anything unless we're both in.
Yeah.
So, for example, we were looking at potentially acquiring a business a couple of months ago. Dom wanted to, I didn't. We decided to not go because we couldn't agree. Complete switch on the scenario. We were potentially selling a business about 2 years ago. I wanted to, Dom didn't. Again, it took us a little while. We had, I would say, minor disagreements along the way, but because it's your brother, I can say something to him that I'd never say to a business partner.
Yeah.
And I know that he's not going to be offended because we've grown up, and for 15 years of our life, we would literally wrestle from 9 a.m. until we went to bed, and we would punch each other and we would fight. And that's just the norm. So that's having a tiny little disagreement about where we're trying to take our lives. We know that it's coming from a place of, we're not doing it to one up each other. We're not doing it because of ego. It's from a place of, this is what I think is best for us and our businesses. So it's that alignment and trust.
Yeah. Love it. Quick speed round, fellas. I want to have you back because we had a little technical difficulty in the beginning, but favorite, a book that's had the biggest impact on you?
Oh, Dom.
Oh, book. I'm going to say probably The Compound Effect for me.
I love it. Darren Hardy. That was the greatest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Mine is The Chimp Paradox, which is a book by Steve Peters. He is a psychologist, and it's all around how the human brain works. And, if somebody says something bad to you, John, straight away your chimp would come out and you'd react.
Yeah.
And because that's your natural instinct. And what this book does is it breaks it down as to why we think how we think and how to control your outer chimp.
The Chimp Paradox, the mind management program.
Yep. By Steve Peters.
I love it. I'm going to buy it today. Thank you. Best piece of advice you ever got?
Best piece of advice I've ever got is to go with your gut. There's a reason why your gut is telling you something. Your gut will rule over, in my opinion, your logic. And that's for both doing something or not doing something. There is a distinct feeling that you get, and it's always been right, never been wrong.
Yep, good, love it. Dom?
I think it's got to be, I can't think of the exact, but it's about just doing what's sort of best and doing good instead of prioritizing money or cash. We always try and focus on supporting people around us, making the introductions, building your network. And it always comes around over time.
I love it. Finish this sentence. One thing everybody can do to get over fear is, Elliot?
Be your authentic self.
Dom?
Realize that you can always go back to square one if you don't start.
I love it. Tell everybody where they can connect with you, learn more about you, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yep. So connect with us both on LinkedIn, Elliot Chapman and Dom Chapman. And if you're interested in anything that we've spoken about or a discussion, drop me an email, Elliot, ELLIOT, @chapman.capital.
Love it. Think community. I love this podcast. I'm a coach, a business coach. I work with people all over the country who are stuck, get them unstuck. I have guests like Dom and Elliot on the show to help you get unstuck. Jens, you shared a ton of great stuff today. I just want to highlight one thing, which is think community, pay attention to your perception of risk. Get that idea down on paper and start bringing it to life. Dom, Elliot, in the private chat, I put the link. Sign up again. I want to have you guys on again. Stay on for just a second. Think community, reach out to the Chapman brothers. If you need them, reach out to me at johndwoskin.com. Fellas, appreciate you both. Appreciate all the guests you put on the show. Love what you're doing. We'll have a more in-depth talk next time you're on. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, guys.